Alright, hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This week we're going to be picking up where we left off in our Intro to Nursing exam reviews. This is the third one here. Okay, so here we go. This covers nutrition, abdomen, integumentary, and eyes. I'm not going to focus so much on nutrition because I feel like this is a rather low yield topic, so I'm just going to be skimming through the slides. You can pause and read them if you will, or if you want, but I don't think like most of these stuff is super critical, especially like on the NCLEX level. So I'm just going to be skimming through these. You guys can pause if you need to. I'll just give time for you guys to pause and read them. It's a couple of slides, so oops, sorry. And then Alright, so we're going to be focusing on the abdomen today, okay? So the abdomen is divided into 4 quadrants, right upper, right lower, left upper, left lower, and remember when you're looking at the patient, this is the left hand side, right? So remember not to get confused. I know some people get confused really easily. This picture here is another way that's representative of how the abdomen is divided. It's the 9-section portion. It's good to know both, but you should know which one your professor is going to test you on. So for us, it was mainly this one. We only had like a couple questions here, but not too much. Okay. It's important to know what organs are where. You need to have a good basic understanding of anatomy, and I'll be the first one to tell you my anatomy was not great when I went into nursing school because I didn't study very hard prior to getting into nursing school. And as such, I had to learn my anatomy, or a good brief overview of where everything was, okay? And a mnemonic I used to remember it was I wrote down glass. I'll write like G-L-A here and then S-S, okay? So this basically means the G stands for gallbladder, L stands for liver, because the liver is mainly on the right hand side here. It does go into the left a little bit, but it's mainly on the right hand side. A stands for the appendix down here, and then stomach and spleen. So it would be glass with the SS on one half and then the GAL on the other half. That's how I remembered it. If you guys just know your anatomy because you guys studied hard in pre-nursing records, I'm really proud of you guys, but I was not that student, so I had to learn it myself later. Okay, so assessments. We always start with inspection, right? Least invasive to most invasive. We did that with cardiovascular, we did that with respiratory. So for inspection, we're going to look for symmetry, right? You're also looking for the contour. Is the abdomen flat? Does it concave in? Does it protrude a little bit to convex? Is it rounded? Flat contoured, normal, and sculpted, super athletes. Thin adults may have that scaffolding concave in look. Young children can have that little pot belly look, but adults, when they have it, it's usually because lack of exercise or being overweight. So what's expected is it should be smooth and even in color. Scars should be correlated with the patient's recollection of the injury. I remember tons of my patients, they come out with like a scar in their abdomen. And I'm like, where was that? And they're like, oh, that was from a kidney transplant. What was this? This was from, my gallbladder colectomy. Like they should know. If they don't know, that's probably not a good thing. You can see a slight pulsation from the aorta in the epigastric area left of the midline in a thin or flat abdomen. This You can see it better sometimes with a little bit of light, or if you're standing at the foot of the bed sometimes. If you see the large pulsation, you want to auscultate with the bell of your stethoscope. Be very careful. It could be AAA or anything else, right? Unexpected striae, these are stretch marks. Ascites, Cushing syndrome, weight loss, pregnancy even. Yellow skin, this is from jaundice, liver disease, or excess bilirubin in the blood. Caput medusae, these are like dilated superficial veins that are radiating from the umbilicus, okay? And it's caused by liver portal hypertension. So basically it's this increased blood pressure in this vein in the liver, and it's gonna appear as these little spiky, kind of like, not really spiky, but looks kind of like in a spiral kind of around the belly button there. Sorry, my cat's really talkative right now, so you guys are gonna have to bear with it. The next step is auscultation. So inspect, then you listen. I know the order was different for respiratory and cardiovascular, and I'll get to why the order is different later, once we get through all of this. So you're gonna listen for the bowel sounds. We press lightly against the skin using the big diaphragm. We start at the bottom right, then go right upper, left upper, and then left lower, okay? That's just the order we do things, because you're following the movement of the stool, okay? Or at least that's what I was told. Normal sounds, gurgling 5 to 35 times per minute. If you hear nothing, you have to commit to listening to that whole area for at least 5 minutes. Don't chart 0, because it's usually a bad sign. You don't want hypoactive bowels, especially in like surgical patients or anything. But that's usually where you would have a difficult time hearing them. Bruits, indicative of turbulent blood flow. If you listen to any bowel sounds and you feel any areas are bulging, you want to switch to the bell, and then it could indicate like a blockage of the vessels here. And don't press super hard or like percuss it, because you could be rupturing something that you're not supposed to be rupturing. So hyperactive versus hypoactive. Hyperactive is greater than the 30-35 sounds per minute that we indicated or defined earlier, and it usually means like increased motility, or there's a lot of peristalsis action going on. So the causes are like if you're extremely hungry, upset stomach, gastroenteritis, this is like the stomach fluid, right? Brisk diarrhea, laxatives, an early bowel obstruction, or diverticulitis. You're going to hear the borborygmi, which is basically the growling stomach sound that you often will hear in a non-pathological fashion when you're just really hungry. Hypoactive, on the other hand, obstruction is less than 5 sounds per minute in that one quadrant. These are usually all pathological and not great, because it's something that's not normal in your bowel, something's stopping the activity of your bowel. And then you should hear just decreased gut sounds, right? You don't hear the growling. You still hear like the churning and the tinkling, but like it's not as drastic as it normally is. Now the next step is percussion. Okay, so timpani is expected. Timpani, as we defined earlier, is this bright resonant sound. If it sounds super resonant, then it's super hollow, filled with air, right? Because timpani is with air. It's not filled with fluid, right? Fluid, if it's fluid, you hear dull sounds, because you hear that over organs or the fluid, because it has more I think the water carries the sound a bit worse there, so it you don't hear it. Because if it's hollow, the sound passes through the air easily, but if it has to go through the water, it's a little bit duller. It's like a denser sound, if that makes sense. And then lastly is palpation. So you put the patient in a supine position and you apply light pressure. We don't do deep palpation as nurses here. That's only for NPs, PAs, and doctors. You want to look for voluntary muscle guarding, facial expressions, and areas of tenderness. So you want to be watching their face, because sometimes the patient may not say anything. They may just make a grimace, and if you're only looking at the stomach or the abdomen, you may miss it. Okay. And the reason why we palpate last is because it's the most intrusive. Sorry, that word was escaping me for a little bit. And if you press on the stomach and the abdomen, you may be stimulating the bowel to have a movement, to have sound. So what you hear, if you palpate or if you percuss, if you palpate then you like percuss and then listen, you may not be actually getting like a true result. Because what if they were hypoactive and because you pushed on it, their stomach started growling and all that stuff, you know, then that's not a true reading. Okay. This slide here shows different styles of palpation for different areas and different organs. I wouldn't say these are super high yield, but it should be soft, non-tender to the touch though, and non-distended basically. Stool colors. Nurses have to deal with stool a lot. So brown is normal, green usually if you're having diarrhea or you're eating a lot of green leafy vegetables or food coloring. I remember the first time that happened to me when I was a kid, and I was so shocked when I ate like Baskin Robbins for the first time. Yeah, maybe TMI. Yellow is usually indicative of fat, so that usually is like a problem with absorbing the fat, because normally the fat should have been absorbed, but if it's just like coming out of you, it could also be a sign of an issue in the gut. Also could be related to celiac disease. Yeah, this basically just defines what celiac disease is. Black stool, it means that you're bleeding internally. Keynote, this is kind of like medium yield, I would say. Iron can make your stools black too, so you don't need to call the doctor if they had iron recently replaced or like an iron supplement. You can just be like FYI, you know, but they're probably gonna be like, yeah, okay, duh. Pay attention if it's sticky. This is probably the most high yield of all. If like you only took away one thing from today's video, it's black stool, like dark or black colored stool could indicate upper GI bleeding, okay? And then bright red stool is when it's coming from the lower GI tract, so like your large intestines and like near the end of the tract, okay? Light color, usually problem with the bile duct, because the bile duct is what produces that signature brown color, okay? Some meds can also cause this too. And then blood stain or red could be like colon cancer or hemorrhoids. So I just wanted to also move on to this one, which is also talking about color stool, melena or melena, depending on how people pronounce it. I go by melena, but it's just black tarry stool. Also, from the upper GI tract. We kind of talked about that earlier when we were talking about black stool and hematochezia. This is red stool from the lower GI bleeding or bleeding around the anus, okay? Now, these two are like high yield topics. I would know these, okay? And if you think about it logically, it'll make sense to you. The reason why melena is black and tarry coming from the upper GI tract is because it has to go a longer way. And when blood is left out, right? Like, for example, if you ever had a cut on your finger and as you notice it dries over time, the blood isn't bright red anymore, right? It turns like black, maybe even brown, or like this dark color, right? As it oxidizes and all that stuff, right? So because it's happening so far up in the upper GI tract, by the time it comes out of the person's rectum, it is usually oxidized, it's been exposed, right? So like it's black. Red blood is fresh blood, right? If we go back to like the paper cut example, you cut your finger, initially it's just bright red, right? All right, we're going to go for this as our last slide for today. This is the Bristol Stool Chart. I would say medium yield. I guess it's more like for fun type knowledge. Diarrhea, there's different types. I'm not going to go over it because you guys can read. But yeah, just know that like this is bad, type 1, and type 7 are definitely bad. And then what you should try to be getting is like type 2 to 4. Like anywhere here is okay. And then these are not like picture perfect. Like these are good, and then these are sort of like you're getting closer to like suspicious territory, you know. So constipation, soft, like loose almost, and then like diarrhea. Okay. All right, that'll be it for today's video. Yeah, good luck studying. Just a little bit of a life update. I am still working on a med-surg floor right now, but I did take an interview for emergency department. So I'll also have an orientation period of 12 weeks if I get the job. So hopefully there'll be more cool things I can teach you and show you guys as like a new grad going into the ED. But that may mean the video schedule may be altered a little bit, okay? But I'll keep you guys updated, and I may make a video about the whole interview process and how I, approach this interview, because getting a job is pretty hard these days as a new grad. So I just want to help you guys out. All right, I yapped enough. So good luck.